Fantastic. One thing I love about Highway Church, so there's a lot of positive people in Highway Church. And I love that. I love hanging out with you. I love hanging out with my church family. I don't know. Everyone has different experiences of church, but let me tell you, the people in my church have always kept me on track. And kept me in that place where I can come to my church family, not just on Sunday, but I love it on Sunday, but other times, and I just know that my family's there. And as for some people, that's not so important. But as a teenager, I attempted to do life on my own. And when you do that, make a decision to do something on your own, you become a prisoner of your own loneliness. And when everything starts to fall around you because you sort of don't really know how to take on the things of life, it becomes a disaster and just things falling apart. And when I met Jesus, I just didn't met Jesus. I actually met people who actually cared. And the people that actually showed up on the first sort of 4 Sundays of my Christianity when I became a Christian, I just realized back then how important that was for me. I would walk into any given row, and I'll be honest with you, I'm surprised that people actually didn't get up out of the row and move to another row, because I was a real piece of work, mate. Even in those first couple of weeks, God was doing real work on me, but I still, my speech patterns were still sort of unregenerated. And I think I've spoken to you about this before, that how I would praise God would have a lot of expletives in it because I hadn't yet learned that there is other adjectives in this, in the English language that could be used. It was like suddenly I had an answer to my problems. Jesus was answering some of my problems. He was helping me sort out some of my problems. But what I didn't realize is what he was doing was he's fixing stuff inside of me. And then I had the capacity to look at my problems a different way. And it took me, it went from, I was very super spiritual very quick because it was like God is the answer to all my problems, and which was super awesome. But then after a bit of maturity, I realized actually God was doing a phenomenal, miraculous work in me, that problems that I was facing, that he gave me the courage, the wisdom, the understanding, the insight, the physical capacity to be able to overcome the problems that I faced. And you know what? Let's talk about problems. Problems. Do you have any problems? So in the Christian church, especially in Pentecost, we're full of faith, right? And I have a gift of faith too. I often don't like talking about problems. Many of you won't know the problems I have because I've told you. You may observe me having problems. You definitely would have observed me having problems, but you won't hear me talk about them. And part of that has been a bit of sort of my super spiritual sort of thing, like, don't talk about your problems because I've already overcome my problems. But I've got to say that there's a journey in the midst of that. There's got to be a journey for us, right? Because let me tell you, at the moment, I've got some problems. So, part of being a pastor is one thing you get to do. Your privilege is to listen to everyone's problems. When people come to you, often it's about problems. And I'd like to give you their problems. Well, this morning, I thought, stuff it, I'm going to tell everyone my problems. Now, because they involve other people, I have to be careful. But this week, a number of people have presented me their serious problems. I wasn't the problem, praise the Lord. They came to me with their problems. So I hear all their problems. And I sort of enjoy the fact that they're not my problems. So I'm happy to sit through that. Then my family in Toowoomba have problems. My dad has health problems, right? And my sister and I, we share helping my dad through his health problems as an elderly man, has serious health problems. And he likes talking about all his problems to me, all his health problems. And he had a serious health problem overcome to overcome this week on Friday, and it was just like my poor sister was working through it with him, but it was just, it's emotionally, it can be emotionally draining, like you got problems. We've got friends. I've got good friends who've got, and people in this church, you got problems, and I feel for you. You got serious health problems, and I think about that, and that's a weight on me too. That becomes a problem. Now, my eldest son is going through some stuff, and it's possibly centered around how me and what I've said and done. And this week, that created within me and Joe, because we love our son, but there was friction this week, serious friction. And but we love him, and we want to support him in the midst of that. If you're a parent, you know what? You got kids, and I'm not saying this is a negative thing, but if you got kids, you've got problems. I'm not saying that they're bad, right? So, it's my role. I'm privileged to be a part of their problems. No, it is. I seriously consider it a privilege because I don't want them to do it alone. Because when I was a kid, I tried to do it alone. It's not that I was alone either. Like my parents lived in the same town as me. There's a lot of people that were praying for me. There's a lot of people that wanted to help me, but I didn't want their help, right? But it's my privilege. I consider it my privilege to be a part of that. But then, people don't want to let you in, or people don't want you to be part of the answer, and it hurts. So this week, I've been dealing with a bit of hurt, in my family stuff. So my wonderful son Cody, he right now, man, I feel for him. He's got tests coming up. One particular maths test. Now, I tutor my son, Cody. So you might be thinking, Cody is in a lot of trouble. Have you seen some of my maths? So I've got to, become a mathematician beyond my own abilities. So which means I've got to learn it too, So it's hilarious. You should see Cody and I sitting in front of a computer trying to solve a word problem with algebra. And we're trying to figure out how to put it into an algebraic equation. And my brain has got nothing. There's words and there's numbers. But I can't do anything. I feel powerless. We're sitting there like two powerless people. And the test is just coming around the corner. And I'm like, my goodness, how are we going to pass this test? I feel like I'm passing the test. It's true. I know parents, if you supported kids through your academics, like you feel like you're on their flipping exam, don't you? It's like my kid's being tested, but, everyone's sort of thinking, well, was he going to pass the test? Exams coming up. So if you've got, teenage children, you'd know, just coming up, and I feel for you, Leona, grade 12er, so, and Kayla, you guys have got stuff coming. Big stuff, hey? Big exams coming. And we're with you. Everyone who's doing those exams in year 12, we're with you. How many more problems? So then we're about to go away for a pastors' conference, right, which everyone thinks is a holiday. Maybe the first couple of times it was. But then yesterday, right, who's had enough of my problems yet? No, keeping's coming. You know what I found? People don't care about your problems. But you're going to sit there and listen to my problems. So yesterday at the manse, we're sort of all getting ready. The water pump fails and it won't work. Do I look like a plumber to you? I tried. Exactly, right? I tried. That pump ain't going to work. We don't have any water up at the manse, okay? So don't come up to my house looking for water or a shower. You ain't going to get one. I don't have time to fix that. We're leaving this afternoon. I got problems. I haven't seen any violins yet. I got problems. Yeah, no, it's my turn. Just jokes, mate, I know. So why do I still have problems but love Jesus? Isn't like, back then when I first went, Jesus answered all my problems. So, but now as I grow up, I still got more problems. Do I still have Jesus? Are you still there, Jesus? Last week we learned about, we talked about Jesus was in the boat with the disciples, right? Wasn't he? But what was he doing? Asleep. Is Jesus asleep this week? Because I preached on it all last week. Woo, 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 woo. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Are you asleep, Jesus, at the wheel again? Because I got all these problems. So Jesus, the disciples, in the middle of a storm, in a boat. That's the story, right? They're going over the Sea of Galilee from one side to the other to do God's work. Jesus is resting in the front. Big waves. Fishermen, experienced fishermen. They're in the storm of their life and they're saying, this one's the big one. This is the kick the bucket one. This is, we're going to perish. Jesus comes out in front of the boat, They go to him. Jesus, don't you care? He says, you lot. He brought peace to everything, right? And then he talked to him about faith. So, you guys ain't got any faith. I'm in the boat. And there's a faith problem here. And a lot of our thoughts and a lot of theology and people out well-meaningly, we've sort of, I feel like we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. Is that like we've said, but we retreat to theology or understandings about God. It says, it can't be about a faith. It's all about God, and we try and explain this away. But actually, Jesus wants to deal with our immature faith. Jesus wants to deal with our lack of faith, with our lack of trust in his person, right? That's what faith is, right? And there is, and we can trust him in particular areas, but trust in Jesus is a daily thing. It wasn't just a one-time thing when I was 18, right? It's a daily option. It's like you had eggs this morning, or you had your porridge, or you had your man shake, or whatever you had. Trusting in Jesus today was an option. It is. It's an option. So we talked about the disciples in the boat. Jesus actually says, guys, you got none, actually. Today, what I'm seeing is a complete lack of trust in who's in your boat. So he wasn't doing it as you're going to hell, right? He's not doing that. He's in charge of these guys. He's bringing these guys. These are the guys that his father, he's looking after for his father. Later on he prays, these are the guys you've given me, and look what I've done with them. Good stuff, eh, Dad? And so he's going on a journey with the disciples. But he's saying to them, at the moment, your faith is really immature. It's lacking what it needs. And so we find a story, and a similar story, in a similar event. And we thought the disciples may have learned some lessons from the last one. But let's look at this story in Matthew 14, and it's about Peter walking on the water. This is a very popular story. A lot of people know this one. Let's read. And the boat was already a considerable distance from land. They're out in the boat again. But this time Jesus isn't with them. Buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. The wind. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. All full of surprises, Jesus is. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were, oh yeah, it was Jesus, we're expecting him. They were terrified, right? Yeah. Was Jesus bringing us lunch? It's a bit early for that. No, they were terrified. They thought it wasn't real. Their minds couldn't conceive it. It must be a ghost. I don't know. Oh, I do know a bit about their theology about ghosts, but reasoning went out the window. All reasoning went out the window. It's a ghost. Crikey, they said. Because they were Aussies. No, it doesn't say crikey. It just says it's a ghost, they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, what? Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid. And then Peter, oh, you got to love Peter. Lord, if it's you. Peter replied, tell me to come to you on the water. Peter's really starting to, strut some faith, right? Because it takes a bit of trust, doesn't it? He's starting to exercise a bit of trust. Ooh, last time he quieted this whole place. Maybe this time. So Peter's seen it, right? Peter's seen a whole lake. Remember the last story? Peter's seen a whole lake at the word of Jesus go from a moment where we're going to perish to the whole thing gets silenced it. It's like, ooh. Now I'm in a... Jesus is not going to put you ever in a place where he isn't able to help you. Jesus never abandons anyone. He doesn't abandon his people. Peter got out in a boat and walked on water. Who can say they've done that? And came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and beginning to sink, cried out, Lord, save me. Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. Have you ever pulled one of your kids from a nasty situation at the beach? I wish I could replay that when they're being ungrateful. I can remember plucking my eldest child out of the waves. He'd gone down twice, and I was like, boom, in the water. And he'd gone down a 3 time under the third. I saw the first time he'd go under, and I knew at that time I've got to make a decision. I started moving towards the water. He come up, second time, he's in. I'm in the water. I see the third wave coming. I'm like, flip, we're in trouble. He goes under, and it's pretty. It's all happening on a beach. When the beach, the waves are all happening sort of within 5 meters of the beach. They're lake crashes, and it's all happening within distance. And I was watching it unfold, and I'd been there myself, and I'd done this. I'm an Aussie swimmer on the beach, and as I saw this unfolding, I'm like, this is now an extreme event, and I have to do something. So I'm in the water. He's gone down the third time, all right? And I'm just feeling around I'm literally feeling under the water. Hopefully, because I've been there myself, usually, you've been doing these ones under the water. You're spinning under the water. The waves got you and your head's bashing the sand and you shoved a whole lot of salt water or sand in your mouth. And so I'm thinking he's around here somewhere. And I felt this on my leg and I just grabbed it, I'm so glad it wasn't a shark. I had this bang on my leg and I just grabbed it. And this wet 6-year-old, kid. I'm like, she's really lucky today. Put you up on the beach, And like, a kid that age. And 5 minutes later, it's like, what was all that about? Like I had it under control. Jeez, I wish I had a video of that day, mate. Oh, I could have replayed that. I was like, you don't remember this day? You're alive because of me. You need those stories, parents. Hold on to them. So Jesus pulls him up out of the water. Right? And then what does he say? Shall we write, Pete? You did a good job, mate. You got out of the boat. I'm so proud of you, mate. No, he didn't. He says, you have little faith. Now, Peter has actually gone up a step. Because the last story, Jesus is going, you guys got no faith. Here I am in the boat with you. You got the Lord. Me and Dad were hanging out when we put the sea in place. I'm in your boat. And you guys think you're all going to die. You got no faith. The next time Peter's walking out in the water and Jesus is going, I'll pay that one. You got little faith, mate. He pulls him out of the water. Why did you doubt? And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, yeah, you're the Son of God. Yeah, we remember what you did, Jesus. We remember the lake. You stopped the wind in the lake. Yeah, we remember the demons. We remember the healings. Yeah, we remember. Oh, yeah, and now, you've been surfing without the surfboard. You poor Peter. Truly, you are the Son of God. What our problems? I'm going to talk. Can I ask, can you please come to church next week, right? Because this is a 2-part series. It's a 2-part sermon. So this week, I'm going to let you in on a preacher's secret. Okay? I want to let you in a preacher's secret. What I'm doing today is I really want to I'm creating tension in you. I'm trying to work you up a bit. Right? I'm trying to get you to face something, face this problem that we exist, our problems. That's the problem today. I want to get you, stirred up about your problems. Next week, I want to help resolve your problems. But you're in a bit of trouble between now and then, right? I'm going to give you some answer today. I'm going to give you a little bit of an entree. But next week, we're going to talk about the faith that overcomes. But I just think this week we just want to talk about the problem. Because I think, because the problem is not the problem. There's a depth to understanding what the problem is. And the problem wasn't, the problem isn't that, there's no water, that I can't have a shower. So no one's going to come near me this afternoon, are they? Don't go near my wife. No, that's not true. Jeez. Look, people are chucking things at me. That ain't the first time that's happened. Oh, don't you love it? I'm glad you can laugh at your problems and my problems. Peter let's look at 3 causes of our problems, right? For a start, Peter had a problem like winds are rising. The wind rose, right? And he started to what? Fear. Winds are rising. So it's like fear gets this place. It's not going to work out like I think it's going to work out. Yeah? It's not going to work out like I think. When I got out of the boat, the mark was Jesus. When I got out of the boat, Peter was like, there's Jesus. That's sweet. I'm just going to get to Jesus. But then the wind changed the mark. He was like, oh, it obscured his ability to see Jesus. The problem wasn't the wind. The problem was he couldn't see Jesus. The problem was that his fear moved the mark. instead of the mark being Jesus, he's like, oh, I got a problem between me and, but before I get there, there's some other problem. The wind has got, so the mark was moved. Now the mark was, if I get out of this alive, I'm sweet. It went from walking on water with Jesus as if I can just take, if tonight I'm eating fish and bread with my boys, I'm doing good. And there's a slight compromise here. Peter's like, 1 minute, he's like, I'm going to be with Jesus and doing miracles. The next minute, it's like, if I survive, I'm going to chuck a party. Fearful is that there's some of our problems. Fear gets our eyes off what Jesus wants for me. Am I going to get hurt again? Yeah? Oh, I sort of even don't want to go there, but, has the fear of Jesus changed where you think the mark was? Because it didn't work out last time, so I'm just going to change the mark. I was just believing for a bit too much there. That was just, that's not for me. All that stuff that preacher's talking about, all that stuff those people of faith talking about, with that's just not for me. The mark for me is here. I can only ever I'll only ever be this in my job. Or, fail marriage, fail relationship, any relationship. Like I had a trust. I trusted in them. How can I trust again when I got hurt? And they were Christian. So how easy it would be to change the mark and say, well, I tried a Christian bloke last time. Didn't work out. I might just get me another different sort of one that doesn't believe. I'm not saying that should be the mark. I'm just saying, did you change your mark? What about your job? Like I had a go at that job. Was I too big for my boots, God? Was that not what I should be? Should I just be, am I just ever going to cook, steaks over a grill? That was where I was at. Then in my childhood, I was a cook in a restaurant chain. And it was just like, and I had a couple of attempts that I wanted to serve God. And a couple of times I did it. Just seemed to, didn't seem to be working out for me. I wanted to go serve God. I wanted to go to Bible college. My spiritual leader was saying, no, don't go. At least you're not ready for that sort of thing. I was 18. I wanted to go to Bible college the next day. It was 3 years. They said no. And I'm thinking, am I just not picking up what they're putting down here? Am I just missing it? Do these people think that it's a really bad idea for me to be a preacher and serve God in His church? Because the last 3 years, I've made every plan and every effort to work towards that, and each year my leaders say no. For the final year, then I'd avoid them. The next year, I was like, I ain't going to talk to them. How dare they not know how good I am? Anyway, 1 week, the senior pastor, the Honourable Fred Evans, still is a lovely man of faith and things of God. One day after church, he's making I look across, the big senior pastor, and I've looked at him as he's got me in his sights. And only just recently, I'd actually had a youth meeting. I'd put my hand through a wall at the church. Just fun, like not angry, but we were running around the auditorium. And part of, being fun and being a crazy youth leader, I sort of misjudged something. And I literally put my hand right through the wall in the sanctuary. in this giant hole. 2 weeks I haven't spoken to, Pastor Fred a number of months, and he's making a beeline for me. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, geez, they're sending in the big guns now. I really stuffed this one up if they're sending in Pastor Fred. Anyway, he comes up to me, and in his way, beautiful man, just smiling, and his eyes are just, shining with the presence of God on his life. And he says to me, when are you going to Bible college? I just said, I've just been waiting for you, Pastor Fred, to give me the nod. He said, you should go. And I was like, all of this other, the mark, I'd started to move the mark before then. I started to think to myself, well, I've just got to, what am I going to do? Go open, I was only 3 years through an apprenticeship. Am I going to go open restaurants? Is that my thing? I'm just going to serve God, go open. I'd convince myself, now the thing is I'm going to become a great restaurateur, and I'd convince myself of all the things I could do, and I moved the mark because I was fearful that wasn't what God wanted. And so I'd move the mark. And I just wonder, if the problem wasn't the mark, it's just that we moved it because we were fearful of whether or not God was going to show up. Whew. I want to deal with this scripture. For all have sinned. Yeah, next slide, thanks. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And all are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. Paul's a big thinker, big words in there for us all to... I'm just going to simplify this for us. If it was maths, we wouldn't be doing that. It'd turn out bad. But I can simplify the Bible. Everyone missed the mark. That's what sin is. Everyone has missed the mark. So God says, I've got this beautiful destiny for each one of us, but we keep missing it. Oh, we keep missing the mark. And he goes on to say, and fallen short. So the picture and the imagery is the arrow, the marksman. There's a target. That's your mark. I've loosed my arrow and it has fallen short. So he says, there was the mark, and everything you've tried to do has fallen short. Of what? Of the glory of God. What is the glory of God? The glory of God is God's best for you and me. That's his glory. It's like God didn't fail when he made you. You're his greatest possession. You're crafted, and he's like, he don't make mistakes. When he made you, you weren't a mistake. I don't know how you came into the world. It may have been pretty rough. It may have looked pretty bad, but it wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. Praise God. He didn't miss the mark with you. He threw away the mold and said, that mold is good. I'm mold. Dad joke. He said, oh, I got some good going on in you. I got some good for you. I got some brightness going on you. But you know what? I know what the problem is. He says, I know what the problem is. It's the target's over there, and every time you have a go at it by yourself, you fall short because it's by yourself. You fall short. And so it's easy. What's the answer to that one? Don't do it by yourself. It says, we come up with all justifications to move the mark. He goes, you're justified freely by his grace. What does that mean? We come up with I had to move the mark. I had to move the mark because of my wife. She just doesn't understand. She doesn't know. She doesn't do all the things that she should do. So I put a mark back here and we'll just live like this in the gutter. I'm a bit of a drama queen, right? Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. Or whatever it be, your work, or your mates, or whatever it be. It's like we justify it. Oh, this is all it'll ever work out to be. This is, that's just too hard. That's just, I came across someone else the other day, and they were just happy to settle with that. They were just settled for that job, settled for that relationship the way it is, and it's just how it's going to be. Here's the big justification. It's just who I am. It's just who I am. And it's like, no. That's fear speaking into my heart. That's me moving the mark because I'm fear I'll lose. I've never been, the mark is just too far away. I always fall short. That's the problem. This is a problem when Ethan gets up here. And I'm only on slide 3. Praise God, it's 2 parts. What is the mark? Do I get to tell you what the mark is? What is the mark? What is God's best for? Remember the glory of God? What's God's best for you? What's God's best for you? What is God's best for you? I don't know. I've got a bit of insight into what's God's best for me. Jesus puts it like this, when he talks about it. What is the mark of faith? What does that place look like? Jesus says this, the most important goal, the most important one. Teacher of the law is coming along and says, Jesus is putting Jesus on the spot. What's the most important? How should I live? He's questioning Jesus. Does Jesus really know his stuff? And Jesus says, the most important thing, out of all the commandments, out of all this stuff that you guys are doing, you teachers of the law, all your funny rules that you've got, he said, out of all that, this is the most important mark for a human being. And hear all you people of Israel. In other words, what he's saying, if you got faith, because the Israelites, they believed they were the people of faith. Literally, their word for people who wasn't of faith was the heathen. The heathen. The ones without faith. But we, O Israel, are the ones of faith who have got God on our side. And Jesus said, listen up, you who think you have faith. This is the mark. You guys got so many rules. Oh, you look good. Mate, when you guys go into public, you great cloak today, mate. You're looking good. You've done well for yourself. Jesus is going, out of all the things that may look good, out of all of the possible goals that you might have in your life, out of all the things that you may accumulate, that beautiful car that you've got, and that beautiful house, and that beautiful wife, and that beautiful kids, and your beautiful animals, whatever beautiful thing you've got, out of all the things that you may have, hear, O people of faith, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your whatever's deep inside you, with all your mind and with all your, what is your strength as you're doing. That's what strength is. It's about your physical capacity. In other words, with your spiritual capacity, your soul capacity, what you have the emotion and thought to do, your mental capacity. Whatever your mental capacity is, use that to love God. And he said the next one is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. All the rest of it, he said, that's down your list. That's down the bucket list. So he's fine with your fancy clothes and our fancy cars. He's fine with that. Actually, he's a great provider, isn't he? He's a wonderful provider. I think of how blessed we are in this nation. Many of you have gone to other nations, right? Side note, let's not ever trash Australia, because I challenge you to find a better nation that blesses us. We are so blessed. We are so blessed, aren't we? God has blessed us. He has blessed this nation. He has. He has. If you don't think, let me drop you off in one of those other countries to live there, and you can find out. So he puts it in this: love your neighbour as yourself. And he says, so the mark is, Tony, how did you love today? Some of you might be thinking, oh, Tony, you have your stories about your wife. Not sure how loving you've been today. Oh, Tony, what have you been doing since this morning? Have you been, how we cared today for another human being? How we cared for ourselves? How we loved another human being? I think that this is where the mark is. Jesus has told us where the mark is for our lives. He's actually put that as the first priority is how you going loving me today. What's love? To be, but to be in one another's presence. To be constantly thinking of one another. To be constantly immersed in it. And then it's like to love someone else. And I like, this is the reality moment. How are we going with it? How did I go with that last year? How did I go with that last week? And the great thing is this, as Jesus didn't mean for us to just do it by himself. Because when I tried to love by myself, it's like, oh, well, God, I'm going to need a hand. I think Joe's going to need a hand to love Pastor Tony today. The thing about us Christians, that's what makes you a Christian is what? You're one who follows Jesus. And what does Jesus do, right? He found the loving thing to do in every situation in his life. Till he did the final loving thing that he could do was he made sure that you weren't going to live eternally without the presence of his Father in his life. So he made a way in laying himself down for you to be in his presence from now. It's not just about this, it's not about heaven. Long gone is that time where, coming to Jesus is just about heaven. Sure, it is about heaven. If you get on Jesus' side, if you love God, he's got eternity. You're living in eternity, starting now. But he's like, my presence is with you now. What did he go? Is Peter. Peter jumps out of the boat and looks to the presence, looking at Jesus, and then gets buffeted about. He knows if you got the... See, this is where his faith increased. And this is where our faith needs to increase. Is where is the mark of faith in my life in Jesus? Is about how I'm going to connect, how I'm going to express the love of God to people around me. So I will go out and love the world. People go out and love the world. It's like, well, you get to start here. Well, you get to start at home. It's a really good place. Some of you might find that very difficult. Some of you might think, piece of cake, you know. You got no at home? You got me, buddy. I'm on your side. Kayla, if you could go to the very last slide, please. I just, it's the presence of Jesus. The presence of Jesus was in the boat with the disciples in the midst of a storm, and he was able to speak to the storm. Peter decided to exercise some trust in God. In this, and in the boat, and he saw Jesus, thought, I'm going to have a go. Last time, we sort of failed miserably, but I'm going to have a go. I'm going to trust in Jesus. And he got out and he had a go, and he failed. But he looked in the midst of it. Jesus said, whoa, yeah, I've got you. I got you, mate. I got you. You had a go at God again. You had a go at trusting in me again. I ain't going to let you down. If you have a go at trusting in me, I ain't going to let you down. Don't worry. I've got you in the palm of my hand. I'm going to lift you up. I'm going to lift your marriage up. But you got to trust. You got to do some things. You got to trust in me. You got to listen to me. You got to listen to me about your work. You got to listen to me about your kid. You got to listen to me about your, literally about your children. And I'm not talking about just your littlies. I say to God, well, I got to trust. I got a bit of trust in you, God, with these adult children, with my wife, with people in the, other people in the church. So I'm not naive. Joe and I have, people had issues. It's not actually that I have, I don't carry hardly any issues. Just every now and then, once a couple of years, might carry issues with someone in the church. It seems like people come to issues, they have issues with me. We're dealing this week with a problem with people who've taken issue with me and my family. I'm like, well, God, honestly, we'll do what we can do with that, but give us courage and wisdom to face that one. But Jesus, I need you in my boat. I got to keep walking to you no matter the wind of this problem. I need to keep looking to you. I want the presence. I need your presence. Jesus, I'm going to keep looking to you. Because those waves aren't going to swamp my family. Those waves aren't going to swamp my trust in you. Those winds aren't going to get my eye off you. Well, they do, but I just got a faith statement to say I'm going to put my eyes back on you. I'm going to trust in you again. Do I have the opportunity as a leader to just want to say, well, you know what? Stuff them. You've thought that. I've had 4 people nod at me. The rest of you will get there. I know you've thought that. Maybe you've even said it to someone's face. We'll stuff you then. For what you did to me. For what you said. For what you allowed to happen. For what you gossiped about. For what you did. What you didn't do. Sometimes maybe we approach God like that. Or stuff you, God, for what you didn't do. What you did do. It's the enemy of our faith. And this is where it's look at this one up here. For everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is a trust moment. Really? Everyone born of God. What's that? Who's become born of God? Those who've trusted in Jesus. Those who have trusted in Jesus. That's who's born of God. Who trusted in Jesus, that Jesus is their Savior, that Jesus has defeated sin and death in their world. For everyone born of God, what? Actually, the problems that I face in the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world. What? Even our faith. Who is it that overcomes the world? Only the one who believes that Jesus is the Son of God. I'm going to add that. And what's that belief? Jesus is in the boat in me. Jesus is in the boat and he's going to deal with the storm. Jesus is out in the water. He ain't going to let me drown. The victory that has overcome the world. I just think this is where it's at for me today. You know, as I get to go off to conference on the terrible sunny coast, on the terrible King's Beach, with all the terrible restaurants there. Tongue in cheek, right? So it is a bit of a holiday. See, it can't just be look at the miracle worker. It's me and the miracle worker. Who's in it? Who's in it with you? It's me, it's you, and the miracle worker. Because do you know what? The miracle worker was never intent on being by himself. Can't. It's not his nature. His very nature is one, but three. There's the Father, the Dad, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit always working out together. Somehow they're one. We're not doing theology today. But he says, as he is never alone, he can't help but being with you. He can't be helped but being with you. It's me and the miracle working power of Jesus. And you know what? It's at that point where my faith begins to mature a bit, where my faith begins to grow up a bit, and my faith begins to increase, because I know what Jesus is in with me. Jesus is with me. I don't know what that means to you. I want to, maybe you've heard this story before, but when I was a young person, I was a footballer. And I was amongst my football team, I was quite small. I came into football later in my teenage years and really didn't have the physique for it. Didn't have a lot of muscles. I was a late developer. Some of you might think I'm still developing. I was a late developer. So big people used to try and intimidate me on the football field and try and smash me all the time. But I had a big heart on the footy paddock. I didn't care how big you were. In fact, one of my missions when I used to play football was pick the biggest, because I was small, I'd pick the biggest boy on the biggest forward in the forward pack. And when he got the ball, I would run in there and throw myself at this person. Most of the time, right, I got creamed. I didn't care, because I was like, this big boy, he needs to know that I am not afraid. I'll pick the biggest one so they'll all know that I'm not afraid. But I used to get hurt a lot. One day, one of the big boys on the footy paddock, he was giant. I felt like David and Goliath. It was like In my mind, that's what it was like. One of these big boys, he took offense to my attitude, as one might, and a fight broke out on the football paddock. And football has changed a lot, right? But when most people say footballers are thugs, it's pretty close to it. So here we are, this all-in brawl, and I'm one of the smallest guys in the paddock. And these three big guys that I had been like given a hard time to the whole time, yeah. Because after I'd try and hurt him, then I'd big mouth too. So what do these three big dudes go in this middle of this big fight? What do? They come flying right at me. And three of them are lined up right in front of me. And what do? I should have. I'm like, right. Literally, I'm like, I thought I was dead. But I'm like, right. And I put my fists up. Like, who's first? They weren't thinking who's first. All three of them wanted to kill me at once. But I'm like, who's first? You know, like. And then they stopped. And I was like, they're right. You know, you should stop. I'm going to kill you. You know, and things calmed down a bit. And then I was like, and I looked about, and my whole forward pack was standing behind me. And I turned around, and at that time it was like, it was awesomeness, but it was a little bit deflating. Because I thought these three giant blokes that wanted to eat me were scared of me. They weren't. They put in check because of who I had behind me. And sometimes, folks, I think we forget who we're in the boat with. I think we forget who saved our souls. I think sometimes the fear gets me to move the mark because I'm going to lose. And I forget that I've got the big man above me saying, Tony, it doesn't matter. I've got you in the palm of my hands. See the enemy, it doesn't matter. See the sickness in front of me, it doesn't matter. I'm in the boat. Jesus in the boat. And he said, don't be scared, Tony. Don't be scared. Don't be fearful. Don't be arrogant, but don't be fearful. Here's my miracle worker. Here's my miracle worker. Why don't we stand to our feet this morning? We're going to sing this song together. And I think these words are just going to preach into our soul. If you're here for the very first time, you may be thinking, oh, that's the things of life, the problems of life just bash me around, Tony. You don't know my problems. I don't know. You got to hear some of mine today. I know you got serious problems, but you weren't ever supposed to face these things alone. God is with you. You may say, well, I haven't done this God thing. No, today's probably the day for you to do this God thing. Because he's just waiting for you and he wants to be with you. Like, how do I do that? Well, it just starts with acknowledging him. This is what prayer is. It starts with talking to him. See, like, it's no good in a relationship to just ignore the other person in the relationship. That's not how you get close. And two, how you get close to Jesus is by no longer ignoring him, but by start talking with him and acknowledging him in your life. And how we do that is in prayer. So we're going to pray as a whole church together. And if that's you today, bless you. Will you pray this prayer with us and start your journey with the miracle worker in your life by putting your trust in him? Can we put this prayer up on the screen? It might be the very first time, or it may be just this. You may need to pray this prayer, because when I said that story about those three big, disgusting blokes in front of me, you imagined all of the things that you're facing now seem to be so big and it looks impossible. But today's talk with Jesus is about, hey, Jesus, I realize that the miracle worker is in the boat with me. The miracle, what did Jesus say to Peter? When Peter looked down and said, if it's you, Jesus, tell me to come out there. And Jesus said, come. Jesus is calling his people. Say, come on, trust me. Come on. Let me lead you into your miracle. Let me lead me into your freedom. Let me lead you into your great marriage, into your great relationship. Let me lead you into the love, the mark that I've called you to. Let's pray together. Dear Jesus, I believe in you. Thank you for forgiving me. Come into my life and I will follow you.
You are so it is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks peace, the peace of the
Come on, Highway Church, this week. Let your faith rise up. Spend time with God and ask Him, where have you moved the mark? Where have you shifted the expectation that He's already told you? Come on, let's move it back to where He originally placed it. Let's align with God again. Let's walk in agreement with Him, and let's let our faith rise up to that level again, to believe for those things that God's already promised you and I. Come on, Highway Church, let faith rise this week. Come on, let it rise. Why don't we build each other's faith right now, and let's testify to one another in church part 2. Let's go and be with family. If you would like prayer, then we want to let you know that the altar, which is just the front up here, we've got a prayer team that we're ready and eager and keen to pray for you and believe with you in the things that God's spoken about. So you guys have an awesome week, and we'll see you back on Sunday next week. God bless. Enjoy the day.